alaikum, everybody. May peace be with you. My name is Noureen Abedi, and I am here representing the Baqee Organization. We are here today conducting a 24-hour virtual protest to mark the wrongful demolition of heritage site Jannatul Baqee that took place on April 21st, 1925. Jannatul Baqee is the famous Islamic cemetery located right across the Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina, Saudi Arabia. The Baqee Organization holds the protest annually in multiple countries around the world, including the United States of America, Canada, Iraq, and India, to name a few. This year, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in an effort to abide by social distancing protocols, the protest is being held virtually. Baqee Organization strives to preserve and restore Islamic heritage sites in the world. Now we will speak to some people who have attended and volunteered and helped to organize the Baqee protest at the Saudi Embassy in Ottawa, Ontario. Joining me now is Br.Abbas Jafri, who is a very well-known reciter, manqabat reciter from Toronto, Canada. Mashallah, he comes from a very distinguished family who is dedicated in service of the Ahl Bayt alayhim as-salam. Br.Abbas, I thank you on behalf of myself and Al-Baqee Organization for joining us in this important discussion regarding Baqee today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And so I'm going to jump right into some questions that we have lined up for you and would love to hear your thoughts on those.
Sure.
So, mashallah, I know you have been a part of the protests that have occurred in Ottawa, Ontario, and can you speak to what attending those protests means to you and why you care to attend them?
Sure. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So in regards to those protests, I mean, what's really powerful about those protests is that they are done in the capital city of the country of Canada, and walking from Parliament, the actual Parliament building, all the way to the Saudi Embassy, and communicating our displeasure and our rejection of what they've done to the perpetrators who did that act is a very fulfilling and noble act. I'm from Toronto, so Ottawa is approximately 4.5 hour drive from here, and so with driving there, you're already full of energy. You're pumped up and you're ready to go on this mission. And what's really good about this is that when I'm growing up, this wasn't really something that happened. We would have one majlis on the 8th of Shawwal in commemoration of what happened, but to actually formalize this as a protest and to walk publicly on the streets and letting the whole world know what happened in 1925, then it's a very fulfilling act, and saying those things and being against, again, like I said, the perpetrators in front of their own building, takes you back to Karbala and what Bibi Zainab and Imam Sajjad alayhi salam did when they were in the courtyard of Yazid, in front of the tyrant, in front of the oppressor. Absolutely. And saying, what the atrocities that they committed is not acceptable. Of course, we're not at that level, but it's a hint. And those who follow their footpath, in order allowing us to practice that is very fulfilling.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned that you're not from Ottawa, so that requires you to actually make the effort to get there, and that speaks to a lot of the attendees who attend. So they've come from all over Canada, and that's how they're kind of working to mark and commemorate and demonstrate their displeasure of what's happened. And so it's really important, just like you mentioned. And so can you speak a little bit to comment on why the anniversary of the demolition of Jannatul Baqee is so relevant today, and why it's something that we should continue to build up momentum towards, and how that protest contributes to that?
So Baqee, first of all, it's so important to us personally because it hits so close to home, right? We have 4 of our imams there, and some riwayats and some hadiths say that Bibi Fatima's grave is there as well, although that's not confirmed. And other great personalities like Bibi al-Baneen and companions are there. So from a personal standpoint, it's very important that, because it's hitting close to home, like I said, it's right in our own backyard. But on a global level, it's very important because Saudi and their allies, what they're doing around the world is no secret. Openly committing all this oppression, openly committing all this tyranny. And the destruction of Jannatul Baqee is an example of a greater cause.
Absolutely.
And so whether it's Baqee, whether what's going on in the world today and other holy sites around the world, we have to let the world know what's going on. Because if we're not going to, take the veil off their face to expose them for who they really are, then who will? It's our job. It's our duty. We can't stay silent when there's oppression going on in any form, regardless of who it is, right? I mean, you have brothers in faith, and you have those who are equal to you in humanity, right?
Absolutely.
So if people can come out for other causes, Muslim, non-Muslim, I've been to rallies, protests for other causes.
Absolutely.
And they're there. Then they could come out for this as well.
Right.
But they will come out only when they know what's going on.
Awareness needs to be there.
Awareness needs to be there. Absolutely. And so us being the followers of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the rest of the 14 Ma'sumin, we have to show the world that.
For sure.
If you care, you'll speak up about it.
Yes.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
So that's why, talking about Baqee is so important to the world, so that the whole world can know what's going on.
Thank you. Completely agree with your sentiment and really appreciate your thoughts. And so, as the Quran says, and as all Muslims are mandated by the Quran to revere the great Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his holy family alayhim assalam, can you describe the feelings that a Muslim might have when looking at the flattened cemetery that is currently Jannatul Baqee?
Yeah. So I went in 2011, about 10 years ago. Alhamdulillah, I had the fortune to go to Hajj and visit Baqee for the first time. And before that, I was able to go to Iran and Iraq and visit those holy sites. When you go to Karbala, Najaf, Qazvin, Samarra, Mashhad, Qom, you have this feeling of sukoon and peace and comfort when you're there. You see bright gold domes, you see lights, you see families there together worshiping Allah openly without any sort of worry, without any sort of restriction whatsoever. You don't get that when you go to Baqee. You feel this discomfort, you feel this agitation, you feel this pain inside you. And when you see those graves, what hurts even more is that you can't even cry openly, because you'll have somebody walking around making sure you don't see tears coming down your face. Otherwise, they could physically harm you or punish you in any which way.
Right, and you can't even stand or linger for too long.
You can't do anything. You can't stare, nothing. I remember when I went inside Baqee, there was a local sheikh, I would say, standing there. Like his back was turned to the graves. He was standing there. I couldn't understand Arabic, but I had some brothers who knew Arabic with me, and they were translating. And he was saying things against our fiqh, our madhab, our school of thought, while they were there, right, to deter people away. Yeah. But what's funny, and there's like a chain there, a fence there. I don't know. It's been 10 years, but from when I was there, there's a chain there. Right. And now I heard there's a wall there. You can't even go there. But other graves, you can walk through the pathway and you can stand right next to them. But those personalities, and it's a good, I would say, 30 to 40 feet away. So the joy, I would say, yes, when you go to Karbala, Najaf, and these other holy sites in Iran, Iraq, yes, tears flow, but you have this peace and sukoon. Right. You don't feel that in Baqee, Right. And I don't mean for this to be a long answer, but one thing I remember an alim said. He also visited Baqee once, and when we go to Karbala, Najaf, these holy sites in Iran, Iraq, we take a little bit of dust with us, a little bit of sand, a little bit of khak with us to go home to put in our homes to increase our risk for barakat, etc. And people were doing that when they were, I don't know how they were able to do this, but fortunately they were able to go close to the graves of those personalities in Baqee, and they started picking up the dirt and the sand from there. But an alim, when he saw this, he announced, he goes, besides this dirt, they have nothing else. No. Leave the dirt here. At least let them have this here, because there's nothing else here except this. Yeah. So when we see those sites in Iraq and Iran, and we go to Baqee, this is the difference, and this is what I feel inside of me.
Contrast. Yeah.
The contrast is huge. Absolutely.
very, very saddening
Yeah.
to hear. Thank you for sharing your narrative, because it's always helpful to attach, personal experiences with your, everything. So, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to go towards why do you think that the Muslim Ummah is silent on this crime against its own heritage? And that applies to all Muslims. And it's the Shia of Ali who are the ones kind of trying to raise awareness.
Yeah.
So if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when you walk around Medina, you see this as a commonality in that city. If you go to other continents around the world, in Europe, in Africa, and North America, you'll see governments and people upholding their history, upholding their their museums and other pieces of art, and they're trying to preserve that history. But for some reason in Medina, wherever you go, you see holy sites being destroyed.
Yes.
You see, like if you go to the Prophet's house, they destroy. Imam Ali's house, they try to be Fatima's house, they're destroying. I don't know why. What's going on inside their heads to not preserve our history, right? So, to answer your question, I mean, if a lot of people claim that they love the Ahlul Bayt, we love the Ahlul Bayt. Okay, well, everyone can say it, but prove it with your actions, right? Because it's not only these individuals, the four Imams and potentially Bibi Fatima and Bibi Umm al-Baneen, Salaamullah alayha, that are buried there. There are other personalities and their own school of thought that are buried there as well.
Yeah.
So why aren't you raising a voice? Why are you standing with us?
Right.
We're not talking about one portion of Baqee to be rebuilt. We're talking about all of Baqee to be rebuilt. Absolutely. And that's not only personalities to the Shia school of thought. That's school of thought for both. Sorry, that's personalities for both school of thoughts.
For all of us. Right. Yes.
So why we're the only ones that are standing up? It seems as though we're the only ones, the Shia of Ali, stand up for any dhulm that's happening around the world. Not only Baqee, right? Yeah. But it's because we come from the school of Karbala. We graduated from the school of Karbala, right? We've learned from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And so that quietness just can't happen inside of us. Our hearts are filled with too much pain. The blood that's flowing through our veins does not allow us to be quiet. So whether it's in Baqee or anywhere else, specifically for this event, for Baqee, and yeah, it does hit closer to home. So we do raise our voices a little bit louder.
Yes.
But it's because we love the Ahlul Bayt so much, and if you love the Ahlul Bayt, then you'll do it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. And the last question I have for you today. So recently, the UN described heritage sites as human rights. And this means that human rights of many Muslims have been violated. So in your opinion, as someone who was raised in North America, how can we continue to raise awareness and draw attention to this important movement of rebuilding Baqee?
So I think that this should happen not only during the time of the 8th of Shawwal, right? Because when things are done once a year, people tend to forget about it and move on. This needs to be an ongoing movement, right? Because those who are in power in Saudi Arabia, they're there not once a year. They're there 24/7, right?
Right.
So, when people, when the 8th of Shawwal rolls around, they know we'll make a lot of noise. We'll go out to the streets, we'll chant, we'll sign petitions, but they know it'll hush down in a bit, and so they become complacent, right? So in my opinion, this should be done multiple times a year, right? Not only, like, we should start in Shaban before Ramadan even begins. Like, this movement should begin as well. And power to those people who organize this, like yourself and the Baqee Organization. And I do see some people who's a little bit of noise starts before Ramadan, but I think it needs to happen a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it shouldn't be a seasonal thing. It's like, you stay quiet, and then you go ahead and protest, and then you're quiet for a bit, and then it kind of dulls down, and then you rejuvenate it. So these make and break things, uprising and then quiet down, these things become ineffective in a way. So I would say raise your voice throughout the year about Baqee, right? because then you'll make a dent at least. Because like you said, these heritage sites, UN said it's human right violation, but we know who the superpowers are in the world, right? The UN, unfortunately, doesn't mean a lot. Doesn't mean anything, if you ask me. There are so many nations that are committing atrocities across the entire globe, and the UN has openly said to stop doing it, but it's like the UN has no authority, right?
No. Yeah.
And so Saudi is part of that circle. They're part of that circle.
Yes.
That has no respect and no revere for the UN, and the UN can't control them because the Saudi is backed by some major superpowers, right? Yeah. So in order to make a dent, I would say at least, don't make it just 1 day a year or 1 week a year. Keep this going throughout the year, at least 2 to 3 times a year, and so that they can say, you know what, they've arrived, and we have to listen to what they have to say.
Absolutely. So keep building that momentum throughout the year. Leverage our social media, leverage our voices, and create noise and keep up that momentum.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, the 8th of Shawwal holds dear in our hearts. That's the anniversary date that it happened, right? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that you only do it on the 8th of Shawwal, right? Like Ashura happened on the 10th of Muharram, but we don't limit Imam Hussein just to the 10th of Muharram, right? We talk about his dhulm throughout the year, right? We read Ziyarat Ashura throughout the at least Ziyarat Imam Hussein on Eid, on Shab Qadr, like we did those days just passed. We don't keep Imam Hussein confined to just Ashura. Right. So these events should not be confined to just the 8th of Shawwal. This should be done year round.
Absolutely. And as followers of the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam are scattered all throughout the world. So getting that support from people globally is really important. And so making sure that the news is reaching all corners of the world. Correct.
Because like I said, Baqee is a representation of what's happening to Shias all over the world, right? Baqee is not an isolated incident. No. And why did it happen? Because at the end of the day, it's the Shias of Ali. Their holy sites are there. Yes, like I said in the past, other schools of thoughts are there. Absolutely. But it's because the Shias of Ali, their holy personalities are there. Absolutely. And the dhulm and the atrocities that happen to Shias is throughout the year. It's not once a year. Baqee is just a small representation of what happens throughout the year to Shias. So therefore, this Baqee protest should happen throughout the year and not just the 8th of Shawwal. And then hopefully people will start opening their eyes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your sentiments. We really, really value it and appreciate it. And so last year, I know that you had written a poem to mark the occasion of Baqee, of 8th Shawwal. And so we were hoping that you might be able to share that with us today.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this. Last year, I was approached by the Baqee Organization, and they had other people write for different themes, but it was related to Baqee. And so I was asked to write upon the loneliness of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and connect that to the death of Bibi Fatima. So this poem is in regards to Imam Ali and the loneliness that he feels. So,
thank you.
So it's called The Loneliness of the Lion. Heads flying, souls shake, and entering freely is Ali. Alone in the battlefield, a whole army is Ali. With every thunderous footstep, you hear the Lion of God roar. With every thunderous footstep, you hear the Lion of God roar, drowning the enemies in fear. Their worry is Ali, and the dust of Khaybar constantly twirling around his feet. The dust of Khaybar constantly twirling around his feet. Why not? For the axis of humanity is Ali. Why not? For the axis of humanity is Ali, and he carries on with the support of his people with him. But when he enters his home, feeling lonely is Ali. But when he enters his home, feeling lonely is Ali. And alone in war, a warrior. Alone at home, somber. Alone in war, a warrior. Alone at home, somber. With a shattered heart and feeling so empty is Ali. And being without Fatima is something he cannot bear. Being without Fatima is something he cannot bear. At home in a corner crying profusely is Ali. And like raindrops from the sky, his tears begin to hit the floor. Like raindrops from the sky, his tears begin to hit the floor. In an ocean of sadness, sinking deeply is Ali. And the Lion of God sees flashes of being dragged around. The Lion of God sees flashes of being dragged around and wanting to save Fatima helplessly is Ali. And a silent hush, which seems so loud, befalls over their home. A silent hush, which seems so loud, befalls over their home, consoling his children ever so calmly is Ali. And we see loneliness by her grave, loneliness in his home. We see loneliness by her grave, loneliness in his home. Grieved is Fatima, missing her company is Ali. And all their graves have been destroyed, but they live in our hearts. All their graves have been destroyed, but they live in our hearts. That emotion which makes it beat so strongly is Ali. That emotion which makes it beat so strongly is Ali. And we will never be silent until Baqee is rebuilt. We will never be silent until Baqee is rebuilt. The one who will achieve victory is Ali. The one who will achieve victory is Ali. And he is coming to avenge the pain you gave to Zahra. He is coming to avenge the pain you gave to Zahra. The brave father of he who will save Baqee is Ali. The brave father of he who will save Baqee is Ali. And Abbas, his rank is isolated from everyone else, but being amongst the masses, God's mercy is Ali. Heads flying, souls shake, and entering freely is Ali. Alone in the battlefield, a whole army is Ali.
Thank you so much. It was so beautiful, and we're so appreciative that you were able to share that with us. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah, thank you so much for having me. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everyone's efforts, and that inshallah, this dhulm, this oppression, this tyranny across the world, whether it's in the form of Baqee or any other form, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of Imam Zamana so that all this dhulm and oppression can end. And inshallah, sooner rather than later, we will see Baqee being rebuilt.
Inshallah, Ilahi Ameen. Thank you so much, Brother Abbas, for your efforts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, and Jazakallah khairan for joining us today. Thank you so much. Our next guest is Amir Abedi of Toronto, Canada, who has been a dedicated volunteer of the Baqee Organization. He has worked to organize multiple discussion panels and Baqee programs for television. Thank you, Janab Amir Abedi, for joining us today on this panel to discuss the importance of Jannatul Baqee. May Allah reward you for your efforts.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum to you, Noureen, and assalamu alaikum to everyone who's watching. I'm very excited to be here. This is a very important cause, and thanks for the opportunity to discuss Baqee.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and sentiments, and I'll just jump right into some questions that we have for you. So in your view, why is commemorating the demolition of Jannatul Baqee important and relevant today?
Yeah, that's a very important question. We should always ask ourselves when we do something, we need to ask, why are we doing this? Whatever it is that we undertake in our lives. So same goes for the Baqee, the cause of Baqee, the movement of Baqee. Why is it relevant? Why is it important? So there are many great answers to this question. But the one that, I would like to share with you is that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his book, the Holy Quran, has mandated the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam on every Muslim. So, the ayat that readily comes to mind, and I have it here for reference, ayat muwatta. It says, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. And roughly translated, it says that Allah is instructing Rasulullah to tell everyone that I do not seek any reward from you, from people, except for the love of those who are near to me, who are dear to me. Qurba, people that are closest to me.
Yeah.
And who can be closest to anyone closer than their own progeny? The daughter of Rasulullah, Bibi Fatima, Salamullah alayh. And of course, his grandsons, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, is buried in Baqee. And according to Quran in Ayah Mubahila, Imam Hassan is deemed as his son, Abnana wa Abnaakum. And so that's why it is important to continue to protest the destruction of Baqee and to carry forward this movement so that one day Baqee will be rebuilt.
Inshallah. Thank you. Yes. Those. Thank you for sharing those beautiful ayats from the Quran. Appreciate it. So what are your thoughts on the rough treatments of pilgrims who wish to visit the cemetery of Jannatul Baqee in Medina? And have you experienced any of this yourself?
Another great question, Noureen. The Saudi government is known for being one of the most oppressive governments in the world. Lately, their leader has been accused of murdering a journalist who lived in US. All over media, you can look up examples of their oppression and suppression of communities. Anyone who essentially disagrees with them, be it in politics, geopolitics, or in the matters of religion, is deemed kafir or not worthy of holding the same status as those who follow their particular, very narrowly defined school of thought. So Saudis are known for that. And in keeping with that tradition, they essentially subject all Zaireen who go to Medina and who visit Baqee, they subject all of them to all kinds of atrocities, which includes limiting their access to Baqee, to the graves of our Imam, alayhi salam, to the grave of Bibi Fatima. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed. You're labeled as heretics and kuffar or kafir, or following bidah, which is absolutely not true. This goes against the teachings of Quran, that is to show love for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is in line with Quran. So essentially their approach is such that it really reflects their character, which is to oppress anyone who essentially it does not walk their line. And that just isn't fair. That's a suppression of human rights. And the problem with all of this is that even though many people know about it, all various countries know that this is a suppression of human rights, but they don't talk about it because hypocrisy is everywhere. And that's the unfortunate fact. And that's why we have to stand up for our rights for Baqee.
Right. So it's the responsibility and onus is on us to raise our voices.
Absolutely.
Cause awareness. Yeah. So can you describe the emotions that you might have when you think about the flattened land that is the Baqee Cemetery?
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. I've had the fortune of visiting there, and I would, inshallah, love to continue to visit there and one day visit the cemetery once it has been rebuilt, inshallah, with the effort of all the mu'mineen and lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The feeling that you get, and when we went to Karbala, it was a different feeling. It was a feeling that you were visiting, these personalities, our imams, who essentially were mandated by Allah to protect the deen that Rasulullah had brought. And when you go there, you feel at peace, and you feel the presence of greatness. So that's the overwhelming feeling when you visit Najaf, when you visit Karbala, when you visit Jannatul Baqee. The feeling that you might get on the day of Ashura, which is the feeling of sorrow and the feeling of being brokenhearted. That feeling takes over, because the zulm, the atrocities that took place after the passing of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those atrocities, it seems that they continue, and that's what comes to mind when you visit Jannatul Baqee. But one day we are all working towards changing that, and we hope that we will be able to rebuild Baqee in a way that is suited for a holy revered site that it is in Islam, in all of Islam, not just for Shia Muslims, for all of Islam. This is a revered site, and by having destroyed it, Saudis have basically trampled on the basic rights of entire Muslim Ummah, and that is just very sad.
Shameful, yes.
Very shameful.
Just as you mentioned, Imam Ali alayhi salam says that saying his name and loving him will be difficult in every era. So I think that just shows throughout history and even in present day, the oppression and the suppression against our Ahl Bayt alayhim assalam.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that lately in media, there have been news of the Saudis are reforming themselves. And what that really entails is that they're now starting to show tolerance towards all the Western trappings and Western cultural things, which are entirely forbidden and haram in Islam. So they're starting to show tolerance towards those things. You hear about halal discos or halal music and all these things, which is very shameful in itself, because those things are not halal at all. But they're doing that, and they're bringing those things just in the name of showing tolerance, that we are very moderate now, we're modern. But at the same time, their oppressive practices towards the minorities of Saudi Arabia, Shia community, those practices continue. They still continue to put on trial Shia ulama. Just a few years ago, they rendered death penalty to one of the ayatollahs there. And of course, the restrictions on Baqee continue. But at the same time, they're embracing all these haram activities in the name of appearing to be tolerant. Real tolerance will be that if Saudi Arabia is a land where Islam came, and there are various types of followers of Islam, in any religion, even as in Christianity, there are different churches, but they don't call each other kafir or different names, and they don't go and killing them, oppress them
against other sects.
Exactly. So the real tolerance will be to allow everyone to practice their faith, and I hope that they will see the error of their ways, and inshallah, soon justice will prevail, and we hope that in our lifetime we will see the rebuilding of Baqee, inshallah.
And comment on why you think that the Muslim Ummah is silent on the crime against its heritage by saying,
Yeah. So, there are many reasons for why Muslim Ummah does not see this as an urgent issue, as an issue worthy of protesting for. One of the, I believe, one of the most important reasons that comes to mind is that, when Saudis came into the oil money in the 40s and 50s, they started to invest disproportionate amounts of money, their petrodollars, into spreading propaganda, hatred, propaganda for all schools of thoughts of Islam. So if you witness, the teachings that took place in Pakistan, and even they tried in India to indoctrinate young Muslim children to teach them hatred of other sects of Islam. And so, they were quite successful in that. And, the manifestation of that came about it started to show up in 80s in Pakistan, when they would go around and kill anybody who was suspected to be a lover of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. And then it started to manifest itself in the form of Talibans and, all these hate groups that essentially, were spreading their brand of deen, which was absolutely not connected to the deen that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought, or was not in line with teachings of Quran. Indiscriminate killings and destruction and bloodshed everywhere. And those were the teachings, or those were the results of the Saudi effort that went on for decades, and is still going on. They're still funding hate agenda everywhere. So that's the reason a lot of Muslims, have been indoctrinated. Saudis have published propaganda for decades, which basically reduces the importance of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. And essentially, for all Muslims to fully understand the true Islam, this sort of agenda that Saudis have propagated will have to end. And we can see that will end soon, because they will not have the money to throw at this kind of hate propaganda. And hopefully Muslims will come to their senses that, following this brand of Islam has not done them any favors. It has actually demeaned them, and it reduced their importance in the world, because violence and intolerance and these sort of characteristics are not the hallmark of Islam, and certainly they're not part of the modern day life. So they will have to change, inshallah.
Yes, absolutely. And even in my personal experience, I have witnessed and been handed pamphlets of propaganda at the holy site of Jannatul Baqee with wrongful information about how to act in Islam, in accordance to Islam, at a cemetery, and what the etiquette is. So it was all incorrect information that they've been using to falsely and wrongfully educate people on
everyone that visits there is subjected to this hate propaganda, which is sponsored by the government. What's interesting is that Saudi government funds these sorts of efforts. What right do they have to teach their brand of hateful Islam to any Muslim who ends up going there for the love of Rasulullah and for the love of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, and for the love of Allah, when we all visit Makkah? So we go there for the love of all of these things, but we get subjected to Saudi propaganda. And if we show so much as even an inkling of leanings toward Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, then we get subjected to interrogations, we get subjected to violence, to jail. There are many people, and people that I personally know, have been jailed for simply reciting a ziyarat at Jannatul Baqee. So shame on them. And we certainly feel that it's about time for them to change.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is the purpose of the demonstration that is held annually, and the efforts of Baqee Organization to raise awareness on these issues and try to work towards, inshallah, rebuilding Baqee. So as someone who has helped to organize the Baqee protest in Ottawa, Canada, can you speak to what a passerby of the protest would witness when observing the demonstration from the sidelines?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to the credit of Baqee Organization, I would like to say that their efforts have been unparalleled. Excuse me. So, as such, they have sort of spread this movement, having started it in America. And then, of course, Canada has been now part of it. And so many other countries and locations have been part of it. And they have brought a level of organization to this movement of rebuilding Baqee. And in doing so, of course, the protests that have been organized by Baqee Organization in the capitals of various countries, those definitely have an impact. And so when I became part of some of those protests in Ottawa, Canada, I found that Momineen were willing and ready to go to Ottawa. So, we are in Toronto, and from here, Ottawa is about 4.5 to 5.5 hours away, depending on which part of Toronto you live. And Momineen drove there. Momineen took the buses that were organized by different Imam Bargahs, and I organized one bus. And, it was interesting that I made one simple announcement to a very small congregation in our Imam Bargah in Milton. And the bus got filled up, past beyond the bus capacity. And we had to reroute some of those people to other buses. So there is this, sort of jazba, this feeling that every Shia has, that we want to participate in this cause, and we want to go to Ottawa and protest. So what people see in Ottawa is a very well organized group, very disciplined, distinguished group of thousands of Muslims who are peacefully marching from Parliament of Canada towards the embassy of the oppressors, Saudis. And great, wonderful speakers take part in speeches and highlight the cause of Baqee, and hand out pamphlets and press releases to the media in the nation's capital. So that's what you would see. And you'd feel a great sense of camaraderie among the Muslims. People are in a very, one can say, good mood. They're willing to help each other. They're, distributing water to each other. And that's basically the Islam that we believe in. That is to be with each other, treat each other with love, and to discuss in a civil manner, in a civilized manner, your issues and causes that you stand for. And that's what you see in some of those protests in Ottawa, mashallah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And I have one final question for you today. So how do you believe that we can advance the protest to raise more awareness and achieve our goal of ultimately, inshallah, the rebuilding of Jannatul Baqee?
Absolutely. So, everything has a silver lining. So in other words, sometimes I wish I lived in the times of Imams, and that I can, hope like back in that day, I would have been able to give my life or give my worldly possessions to protect and to help the cause of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But unfortunately, we don't live in those times. We live today. But there is a silver lining. We live in a time where every Shia, every citizen has all kinds of means at their disposal with which they can have their thoughts known and shared to the world. We live in the age of social media. Even 20 years ago, if you wanted your thoughts and ideas to go public, you could write a letter to the editor of Toronto Star or Washington Post, and it was up to them to print it or not, right? Well, nowadays, you can go create a website. You can go write on a blog. You can, even if you don't want to do that, get on a forum and share your thoughts. You can share ideas and the information about Baqee on your social media and your Facebook and Instagram and so on and so forth. So, of course, organizations and different institutions, they carry the cause in a more organized way, but as individuals we can all help, and that is to keep this in the spotlight. And that should be done not only around the anniversary of Baqee, it can be done throughout the year. So whenever you get a chance, you can share your thoughts. What is the importance of Jannatul Baqee, and so that's the role that every Shia, every lover of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam can play for the benefit of this cause, to propagate this forward. That is to share their thoughts on social media and on whatever media they have at their disposal.
Yes. So the momentum can be carried out throughout the year, and we can expand our reach, inshallah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Janab Amir Abedi, for joining us today on this panel, and we appreciate your thoughts and sentiment and all of your efforts towards the cause of Al-Baqee.
I thank you for the opportunity, Noureen, and I thank Al-Baqee Organization for allowing me to share my thoughts. I'm not a scholar, but definitely I do have thoughts on the subject, and I must add, you're doing a great job. So wonderful. I hope you keep it up.
Thank you. Okay. Jazakallah. Khuda Hafiz.
Al-Baqee, 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 Al-Baqee.